The crystal chandelier cast dancing shadows across the mahogany table as I adjusted my posture for the 100th time that evening. 23 years old, and I still felt like a child at my parents' dinner parties. The weight of expectations pressed against my shoulders heavier than the vintage velvet dress mother had insisted I wear. "Sit straighter, Sophia," my father commanded without looking up from his conversation with Mr. Harrison, his newest business partner. "You're slouching again." I straightened my spine until it ached, knowing it would never be enough. It never was. The dining room buzzed with the calculated laughter of my parents' carefully curated guest list: lawyers, executives, and their perfectly polished spouses. I recognized the familiar dance. My mother's tinkling laugh at precisely the right moments, my father's booming voice dominating every conversation, and me, the silent ornament, present but never participating. "I was just telling Harrison here about your situation," father said, finally acknowledging my existence with a dismissive wave of his wine glass. 23 and still living at home, still unemployed despite that expensive degree we bought her. The words "bought her" stung more than they should have. I'd graduated summa cum laude, but in his narrative, even my achievements belonged to him. "I've been applying," I started, but father's hand slammed down on the table, making the silverware jump. "Excuses," he spat. "Always excuses with you." Mrs. Harrison shifted uncomfortably in her seat while her husband maintained his business smile, the kind that never reached his eyes. The other guests, the Thompsons, the Weavers, and my father's senior partner, Mr. Castellano, continued eating as if nothing had happened. They'd witnessed this before. "Marcus," my mother purred, her voice syrupy sweet, "perhaps we should discuss this later?" But I recognized that tone. It wasn't defense, it was redirection. She didn't want the scene to affect father's business dealing, not because she cared about my humiliation. "No, Victoria," father said, his voice dropping to that dangerous quiet that made my stomach clench. "It's time our daughter learned her place. She sits at this table, eating food I provide, living under my roof, contributing nothing." Nothing. I opened my mouth to respond, to tell him about the 3 interviews I'd had that week, about the entry-level position I'd been offered that he'd forbidden me from taking because it was beneath our family's standing. But before I could speak, his hand found the back of my head. The world shifted into slow motion as his fingers tangled in my carefully styled hair. I saw Mrs. Harrison's eyes widen. Mr. Thompson's fork paused midway to his mouth. And then my father pushed down, hard and fast. My face crashed into my plate with a wet splatter. Mashed potatoes filled my nose. Gravy splashed across the pristine white tablecloth. Green beans stuck to my cheek. The humiliation burned hotter than the food that now covered my face. The room fell silent except for the grandfather clock ticking in the corner. Then my mother laughed. It started as a chuckle, then grew into something fuller, more genuine than any laugh I'd heard from her in years. "Oh, Marcus," she said, dabbing at her eyes with her napkin. "At least now she's worth looking at. All that makeup was doing her no favors." Father released my head, and I slowly lifted my face from the plate, feeling potatoes and gravy drip onto my lap. Through the mess, I could see him smirking, pleased with himself. "She has no value," he announced to the table, gesturing at me with his wine glass. "Just a prop at my table. Can't even manage to be decorative properly." That's when I saw it, the shift in the room's atmosphere. Mr. Castellano, my father's senior partner and the man who'd known our family for 15 years, set down his napkin with deliberate precision. His weathered face, usually fixed in an expression of amused tolerance, had gone pale. "Marcus," he said quietly, "I think you've had enough wine." "Nonsense, Joseph. I'm perfectly—" "No," Mr. Castellano interrupted, standing. "You're not." Mrs. Harrison was already gathering her purse, her husband rising with her. "We should go," she murmured. "Sit down," father commanded. "We haven't even served the main course." But Mr. Castellano wasn't listening. He walked around the table toward me, pulling out his handkerchief. "Here, dear," he said gently, offering it to me. The kindness in his voice nearly broke me. "Joseph, what are you doing?" Father's voice had taken on a dangerous edge. "Something I should have done years ago," Mr. Castellano replied, turning to face my father. "I've watched you belittle this young woman for far too long, dismissing it as strict parenting. But this," he gestured at my food-covered face, "this is abuse, Marcus. Plain and simple. How dare you? How dare I?" Mr. Castellano's voice rose. "How dare you? This is your daughter, not your property. And Victoria," he turned to my mother, who had stopped laughing, Shame on you. Shame on both of you. The Thompsons were on their feet now, too. Mrs. Thompson moved toward me, but I flinched away, embarrassed and overwhelmed. You're overreacting, Father said, but his voice had lost some of its thunder. It's family business. Not anymore, Mr. Harrison spoke up, surprising everyone. Castellano's right. This is unconscionable. He looked at my father with barely concealed disgust. We've been in negotiations for 3 months, Marcus, but I won't do business with a man who treats his family this way. Consider our deal terminated. Father's face flushed purple. You can't. This is ridiculous. Over some silly dinner mishap. Mishap? Mrs. Harrison's voice was sharp. You assaulted your daughter in front of us and expect us to applaud? I stood on shaking legs, gravy still dripping from my chin. The room spun slightly, but I forced myself to remain upright. Years of silence, years of enduring, years of being the perfect prop, all of it crystallized into this moment. You're right, Father, I said, my voice stronger than I expected. I am just a prop to you. A disappointing, worthless prop. I looked at my mother, who wouldn't meet my eyes. And to you, I'm competition. Someone younger who reminds you of everything you're afraid of losing. How dare? Mother started, but I wasn't finished. I dare because I'm done. I'm done being your punching bag, your disappointment, your prop. I wiped my face with Mr. Castellano's handkerchief, not caring that I was making it worse. That job you told me not to take. The one that was beneath us? I'm taking it. And I'm moving out. Tonight. Father laughed, but it was hollow. With what money? You have nothing without me. She has something you'll never have, Mr. Castellano interjected. Dignity. And if she needs help getting on her feet, she has it. He looked at me. I have an apartment above my office. It's been empty since my daughter moved to Portland. It's yours if you want it, rent-free until you're settled. My eyes filled with tears, mixing with the gravy still on my cheeks. Mr. Castellano, I couldn't. You can and you will, he said firmly. Then louder, addressing my parents. And if either of you try to interfere with her life from this point forward, I'll make sure everyone in this city knows exactly what kind of people you are. Every client, every country club member, every charity board. The Weavers, who had been silent until now, stood as well. We're leaving too, Mr. Weaver announced. And Marcus? Don't expect to see us at the club anymore. We'll be filing a formal complaint about tonight's display. One by one, they filed out, each couple pausing to offer me words of support or gentle touches on my shoulder. Mrs. Thompson pressed a business card into my hand. I run a women's shelter, she whispered. If you need anything, anything at all, you call me. Soon, it was just the 3 of us in the dining room that had hosted so many awful evenings like this, though none quite so dramatic. Father stood rigid at the head of the table, his kingdom crumbling. Mother sat frozen, her perfect hostess mask finally cracked. You've ruined us, Father said quietly. You've ruined everything. I almost laughed. Even now, it was my fault. Everything was always my fault. No, I said, gathering my strength. You ruined yourselves. I just finally let people see it. I walked out of the dining room, my footsteps squelching slightly from the food that had dripped onto my shoes. Behind me, I heard my mother's voice, high and strangled. Marcus, what have you done? What have I done? He roared. What have you done? Sitting there laughing like a fool. Their argument followed me up the stairs as I threw clothes into a bag, not caring what I grabbed. My hands shook as I packed, but my resolve didn't waver. 23 years of this. 23 years of being less than human in their eyes. As I descended the stairs with my hastily packed bag, I found Mr. Castellano waiting by the door. He'd come back for me. Ready? He asked gently. I nodded, not trusting my voice. Sophia, my father bellowed from the dining room. If you leave now, you're no daughter of mine. I paused at the door, looking back one last time at the house that had never been a home. I never was, I said quietly, but clearly enough for him to hear. Mr. Castellano opened the door for me, and I stepped out into the cool night air. It hit my food-covered face like a blessing, like freedom itself. Behind us, I could hear things breaking. Father's temper finally unleashed on objects instead of me. Thank you, I whispered to Mr. Castellano as he led me to his car. Don't thank me, he said sadly. I should have spoken up years ago. We all should have. He opened the car door for me, then paused. But you found your voice tonight. That took incredible courage. As we drove away, I caught my reflection in the side mirror. My face was a mess, covered in food, makeup smeared, hair destroyed. But my eyes were clear for the first time in years. Clear and determined. My phone buzzed with texts. The Harrisons offering support. Mrs. Thompson reiterating her offer of help. Even the Weavers providing contact information for a lawyer friend, just in case. These people, who I'd thought were complicit in my parents' behavior through their silence, had finally seen enough. And when pushed to choose, they'd chosen to stand up for what was right. They'd chosen to stand up for me. The apartment above Mr. Castellano's law office was small but clean, furnished simply but comfortably. As he showed me around, he mentioned, almost offhandedly, "We have an opening for a paralegal, if you're interested. The pay isn't much, but it's honest work, and you could learn a lot." I nodded, overwhelmed by his kindness. "I'd like that." He left me with keys, his contact information, and a promise to check in tomorrow. Standing in my new space, my own space, I finally let myself cry. Not tears of sadness or humiliation, but of relief. Of release. The food had dried on my face, and I must have looked absolutely ridiculous, but I felt more myself than I ever had. I thought about my parents, alone now in their perfect house with their perfect things, probably already spinning the story to explain their guest's departure. They'd paint themselves as victims, me as the ungrateful daughter who caused a scene. But the truth had been revealed tonight, in front of witnesses who mattered. My phone rang. Father's number. I declined the call and blocked it. Then Mother's. Blocked that too. Tomorrow, I would start over. I would take that beneath me job I'd been offered. I would work for Mr. Castellano. I would build a life where my worth wasn't measured in how well I could sit still and look pretty while being degraded. Tonight had been the worst night of my life. It had also been the best. Because tonight, covered in mashed potatoes and gravy, humiliated in front of a room full of people, I had finally found my worth. And it had nothing to do with being a prop at anyone's table. It had everything to do with standing up and walking away from it.